On your website, at the About John section, your motto is helping to keep your bookshelves overstocked since 1999. Indeed, you're a prolific writer. How long does it take you to write a book?
It kind of depends. Mostly 2 years. I'll usually have the idea for one book while I'm writing another, and then I set it aside. It's almost like if you're making a stew, you put it on the stove and then you let it simmer. And I can edit while I'm writing, so there are different processes. But I've just published a book in Britain and America called He, and that book took me a decade to write. I've been doing it in the background while I've been doing the Charlie Parker books, and that's a book about Stan Laurel, of Laurel and Hardy. So that was very, very different. But for the most part, about 2 years between, from the point of the idea until the point that I deliver it to the publisher.
So you write 2 books at the same time?
Well, I can write one. Actually, I'm not very good at that usually. I can write one and I can edit another. They're 2 different processes. I remember reading an interview with the director, James Cameron, and I think at one point he was writing a script for The Terminator at the same time as he was writing another movie. And what he would do would be he would move from one typewriter to another so that he had that separation.
Was Stan Laurel an actual person? Because in your new book, you say that he wasn't, he was fiction. How does reality intertwine with fiction?
Well, in terms of Stan Laurel was. He was a part of this duo of Laurel and Hardy. And he wrote a lot of letters in his time. He wrote letters the way we write emails now. But it's odd, he didn't reveal much of himself in letters. He kept a private part of himself hidden. And fiction is very good at exploring those private parts, those parts that people try to hide. So the Stan Laurel book was slightly different. In terms of the Parker books, you know, I put a little bit of myself into every one of those characters, not just Tim, but the other characters. They have to have a heart to them. They have to have something real to them. And so I often find it's men who often say, I don't read fiction. Men are the ones who say, I don't understand why people would read something that's made up. And you're trying to explain to them that it isn't made up. What fiction tries to do is to find the universal in the specific. It takes a story and it tries to use that story to interrogate human feelings, you know, the lives that we all have, and to try and come to some conclusions about it from that. And I think people who read fiction, they have these wonderful moments, and it only comes from people who read fiction, where you will read a book and you will think, I always thought that, but I thought it was just me, but I could never have expressed it in those terms. But it also gives us insights into lives we don't have. Fiction is the only art form that allows us entirely to inhabit another person's consciousness. And to do that, you have to be unselfish. You have to be prepared to surrender a little bit of yourself, to be open. And that openness makes us better people. It's very interesting when they've studied school children. They find that school children who read fiction, as they grow older, are more empathic. They're more compassionate. It does open something else. It's an incredibly important way of looking into human lives and understanding other human beings, I think.